Today's video is going to be talking about the increasing amount of companies that are exploiting gamers of all ages for maximum revenue. Upon hearing that first sentence, many of you probably think you've experienced or seen something like this before, and I'm assuming you're thinking along the lines of aggressive microtransactions, free-to-play games, intrusive ads, and the way that UI UX can be designed. However, there are lots more deceptive tactics used by corporations that aren't frequently discussed or talked about. The only one, which likely is, would be the most known, which is pay-to-win mechanics in a game. But there's different ways which companies will approach pay-to-win mechanics. Games used to have loot boxes. Games such as Apex Legends or Call of Duty Advanced Warfare or even FIFA series for having the Ultimate Team packs, where you can buy packs for a set price, where you have a chance at gambling for a better player, a better weapon, a better wherever it may be, to gain an advantage in the game. But in some games, especially mobile games, this goes even further, to the point where it's no longer a gamble. You can just outright buy the item for a higher price to guarantee that you can progress faster than someone else, beat someone else, or even progress in a solo campaign story type of mission in a single player experience such as a campaign or story. But what many of you probably don't know is that some mobile games and maybe even PC games do this in a very strategic way. Some games will present purchasable items to you at the perfect opportunity in areas where you are seemingly stuck and can't progress, or may need to spend several weeks on a specific mission or obtaining an item or farming a certain amount of coins, etc, 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 to progress to the next level. The deceptive part of all this is that this was planned from the very beginning. From the moment you loaded up this game, the developer had in mind the area where you would get stuck, because it was purposely built into the game that the requirement to level up at that stage would be much higher. Therefore, slap in front of the player an option to skip this, to skip the tedious task and just buy their way through. The likelihood is, if they've got you hooked on the game by this stage, you probably think it's worth your while to spend the $2 here, $4 there on progressing through a couple of levels. Little do you know that over the course of a few months, you probably spent $40 to $60 on the microtransactions on that game, which is the equivalent of an expensive AAA video game release today. And that is how they get you with the free-to-play games. That's how they still make money, and it's how they make more money than they used to do with paid titles, because upon progressing the game faster by spending money, you're likely also making yourself look cooler by buying certain weapon skins, character skins, maybe you're buying some kind of arena, stadium, additional characters, whatever it may be. And then, before you know it, you've spent more than 60, you've potentially spent 80, 90, or hundreds or more dollars on a game. I myself am a victim of doing this with PC games. Splitgate Arena Warfare, or now just known as Splitgate, was an incredibly popular game a few years ago that I spent more than $200 on in in-game skins over the course of a year. Or how about Halo Infinite? That's another game I've played quite a lot, and I've probably spent somewhere in the region of $60 to $80 on that game as well. And a final example would be when I was much younger, FIFA Ultimate Team packs. I can't imagine how much money I spent over the years of playing FIFA on Ultimate Team packs to improve my squad of players. But how deep does this go? How planned is this, and who are game developers exploiting most? Well, I have the answer. It's kids. That's who they're exploiting most. Because let's not forget, kids are in school. They have friends. Some of them may get bullied. There's lots of social interactions going on, and you don't want to feel left out. You don't want to feel like you're not part of the club. In my day, if you weren't on the football team, or the rugby team, or the cricket team, or you didn't play whatever sport it may be, you weren't part of the cool kid club, and therefore you were outcasted. But now, gaming is much bigger. Back in my day, I feel old saying that sentence, if you played video games, you were likely outcasted. But now, if you don't play them and you don't spend money on them, probably the same scenario. If you do not spend $100 plus on Fortnite skins or FIFA packs or CS skins, you're probably being laughed at school, and you're probably being bullied for it, because you're You know, you're the free guy, you're the free-to-play player. There's many stories of this happening on Reddit too. There's parents that are on forums, on Reddit, social media, talking about how their kids have to be taught the lesson of how gaming companies are manipulating them and how parents don't have infinite money and that things are more important than Fortnite skins like food and mortgages or rent, electricity bills, etc. Just to give you a quick example of a couple here, 5Magic on Reddit says, I can say, especially from a new step-parent perspective, most free-to-play games have these kinds of shenanigans embedded in them. His stepson, who is 12, actively tries to defend his reasoning for purchasing skins in Fortnite, cars in Forza, and players in FIFA. He actually needed to sit down with his mother and explain the mind shenanigans behind these transactions and how predatory they are on children. It's pretty messed up. And then a user called Luntix responded to this saying his nephew does this. He got into CS2 recently and has been giving his parents entire lectures on why he needs a $100 plus skin. They keep telling him no to the point where they're debating of getting rid of the computer because he's so overly attached to trying to get them to buy him a skin. The worst part here is the child's reasoning, I will get bullied if I don't have at least one skin that costs over $100. Another thing that many people probably don't think about, and you probably never even noticed this, but the way that microtransactions work in video games can be very comparable to how casino machines work. For example, if you play a slot machine and you win, you'll often notice, well, flashing lights, a high score symbol, a jingle or chime to represent that, you know, well done, you succeeded, you won. Remind you of anything? When you buy players on FIFA and you open the pack and there's confetti, there's a horn, there's sounds, there's the cheer of fans to celebrate that you just spent money. All these kinds of things reinforce to kids that they should do these behaviours. It's all about the psychology of sight and sound. But scummy microtransactions and manipulating kids isn't where it stops. Some games go as far as actively collecting data around you as you play. They feed that data into algorithms and models that then alter the rules of your game. As a player, I'm sure some of you have felt, especially in multiplayer games, that the game may be intentionally making you win or lose, that there's some kind of hand manipulating the odds against you. Well, you'd be right. When you play online games, every single interaction can be tracked, such as how much money you spent, or how long your play sessions are, and how good you are at the game. That final one is what led to skill-based matchmaking. Skill-based matchmaking is the act of an algorithm predetermining the game's outcome before the match is even played. This is very common in free-to-play games today, especially AAA ones, and most common in shooter games. The game's algorithm will learn how you play, and after a few onboarding matches to gauge your skill level, it will then be able to predict the outcome of your match and your personal performance. I actually have a screenshot of how Halo's skill-based matchmaking works, because unlike some games, Halo's skill-based matchmaking system is actually publicly available, so you can see the outcome that was predicted of the match. You can see which team or which player had the highest chance of winning based on their history. In the screenshot on screen now, you can see day by day the actual performance of a player, the kills, deaths, and then the expected performance by the algorithm. As you can see, every single line is pretty much spot on, give or take a couple of kills and deaths, so it's incredibly accurate. The game knows how you're going to perform before the game has even begun. With this data, they will pitch to players fair matchmaking. They will pitch that you will constantly face players on your skill level. What this actually means is the game is giving you matchups which it thinks should be a 50-50 chance of you winning or losing every single game, which actually just promotes more stress and more sweaty gameplay because you need to try your ass off every single match rather than being able to sit back, relax and play the game that you enjoy. And if you overperform what the algorithm expected you to perform like, then you'll be met with a harder match in your next matchup. Let's say that the teams are red and blue and you are part of a red team. Let's say you win the match. Well, in the next matchup, the game might say, okay, this is no longer a 50-50 matchup, now red team only has a 46% chance of winning, and blue team has a 54% chance. If you win that match, it may go as far as a 40-60 split, and so on and so on and so on, until eventually the game forces you to lose by giving you a match so hard that you just can't win. This is engagement-based matchmaking, where the game tries to maximize how long you spend on the game by hindering how fast you can progress through the levels. Many players have discovered that this is more harsh when you play as a solo player, so if you're someone who solo queues in matchmaking games like Halo, you've probably noticed that you have quite a hard time advancing through the ranking system, but as soon as you play with 3 other players on your skill level who you can communicate with and you know are on par with your abilities, you will breeze through the ranks much quicker. Obviously, companies caught on to people doing this and then enforced ranked limitations where you can't play with certain players if they are a certain level above you or below you, so you can only play with people who are within your matchmaking skill level, within your rank. And some games went even further to say that you can't play with a certain amount of other players if you're playing a ranked game mode, and limit you to only queuing as a team of 2 or 3 rather than fully stacking the team with people that you know. So that's how algorithms adapt to your playstyle. But what about how they adapt to your spending behavior? The way you spend on video games and how much you spend is kept in a sweet spot of challenge and frustration, and the devs don't care if it's unfair or predatory. Let's create a scenario. Let's say a game has 5 difficulty levels, and the default is 3, and the chance of dropping a rare item in this game is 5%, and this game has loot boxes, so the price to buy one of these drops is $5. Well, let's say that Jimmy452 is a high-performing skilled player and has previously spent $60 on this game over the course of the past 12 months. Well, the algorithm will think, how can we milk this player for more money? Well, rather than the difficulty of the game being 3, let's up this to 4 so that he has a harder time. And let's drop the chances to a 2% chance of getting a rare item. Let's also bump up the price of this special offer to $15 rather than $5. And that's how they get you. These people are known as whales, people who spend way too much money on video games in order to progress and have a track record of spending more than the average player. And this is where it gets really bad, because this just promotes even more spending. In a weird way, spending money on a game can actually backfire against you and make your game harder in the long run. By buying the item that allowed you to progress through levels 12, 13 and 14, you might have 10 times more difficulty progressing through levels 25, 26 and 27, and therefore you need to purchase another item to get through those levels. And the worst case of this is when this is paired with skill-based matchmaking. Now, many games today are free to play and pay to look cool, but as we've already discovered, some games are free to play and pay to win. So if you spend money to make your character more powerful, you may initially face weaker opponents to feel empowered, but over time the game will match you against players who have also spent a lot of money or are more skilled than you. Therefore, you need to spend more money to beat them. These games become less about how skilled you are as a player and how much time you've put into the game, and more about how much money you're willing to spend. Believe it or not, people who fall into these traps often don't care because they have the money to burn. The people that fall into these traps are mostly celebrities. I've seen big YouTubers, singers, actors fall into these predatory gaming tactics and taken advantage of. They'll claim to be insanely good at Dragon Ball Legends, but really they spent $2,000 on upgrading their characters. And they don't care, because to make $2,000, all they have to do is press F5 and refresh their bank account. What these people don't realise is that these games are designed in a way which will keep you in a frustration zone forever. Regardless of how much money they spend, they will never truly beat the game. And there you have it. That's a more in-depth look at how gaming companies exploit gamers for maximum revenue. I hope you enjoyed this video and learned something from it. And remember, don't go spending money on pay-to-win video games. You will never win. Leave a like, comment below, and subscribe for more videos on the channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Before I leave you today, let me quickly plug my video game, which has no predatory tactics. There's no skill-based matchmaking, there isn't even microtransactions. It's called Cross Planet, and we're having a game night this weekend, the 13th of July, where anyone can download our playtest from Steam and play the game for about 5 or 6 hours. So if you want to try out the game we've been working on for 3.5 years, feel free to drop by. We're all playing private matches against each other. No predatory things in there. And yeah, just hop by, have some fun, help us test, and tell us what we need to improve on, tell us what you like, tell us what you don't like, and we'll continue doing this as our passion project. We don't have any funding, we don't have a publisher, it's just us in our spare time, a team of less than 10 people, and yeah, that's it. Alright, thanks for watching, and goodbye.